Hey guys, it's Sam, and today I'm going to give you a 9-day itinerary for your first trip to Japan. So I don't normally do videos like this, but I actually just got back from my first trip to Japan, and since I've been back, I've been getting a ton of questions about how we planned our trip. So I thought that I would put this video together just to share some of what we did and hopefully give you guys some ideas for your trip to Japan. So full disclosure, this itinerary is a full action itinerary. It's pretty packed, but trying to do Japan in 9 days is really tough. And if you're like us and just didn't have that much time, I think this itinerary will tick off kind of all of the big ticket items and help you get the most out of a shorter trip to Japan. So before we get into the individual days, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of how we organized our trip. We flew in and out of Tokyo, but we also wanted to go to Kyoto and Osaka. So we started our trip on the west side of Tokyo, then we went to Kyoto, then Osaka, and then we came back and we did the east side of Tokyo. Now, we were actually there for 11 days in total, but 2 of those days were kind of eaten up by travel and just getting settled. So I thought that I would just include the 9 days where we did the most, and if you guys have a couple of buffer days, maybe you can throw in a couple of relaxation days because
you might need it.
Anyway, let's get started. Day 1. When we came to Tokyo, we decided to stay in Shibuya. So we spent our very first day in Japan right in the middle of the Shibuya Scramble, checking out the famous crosswalk, looking at the Hachiko dog statue, checking out some department stores, literally just wandering around Shibuya. It's definitely a busy area in Tokyo, but it's a great way to kind of see the city come to life first thing in the morning and just wander around and take in
everything that's going on around you.
After we wandered around Shibuya for a few hours, we decided to walk over to Harajuku, which is about a 20-minute walk, and Harajuku is known as the hipster neighborhood of Tokyo. Takashita-dori is there, which is the really busy street with all of the hipster stores and things to eat. There's a ton of streets that branch off of that main street that kind of lead to more quiet areas with cool thrift shops and, of course, the famous Harajuku crepes that you have to try while you're there. After that, we headed to the Meiji Jingu Shrine, which is technically in Yoyogi Park, but it's just a few minutes away from Harajuku. It has those big sake barrels out front. It's a really picturesque shrine. When we were there, we were actually lucky enough to see a traditional Japanese wedding, which is very cool. After we did that, we headed back over to the entrance of Yoyogi Park and we just grabbed a couple of drinks and chilled for a few hours. So after that, we headed back to Shibuya, which is an area that you kind of just have to see at night. You know, it's very cool in the daytime, but it's super lit up at night. There's even more people, and it's a great spot to grab dinner and just enjoy the Tokyo nightlife. Day 2. We started day 2 at the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building. There is a free observatory that you can check out to give you a great view of Tokyo. There was a bit of a line when we got there, but we did get there a little bit after it opened. So if you want to go straight up, just make sure you get there right when it opens. I know that a lot of people like to get the view of Tokyo on their very first day. We got into Tokyo on a weekend and the government building does not open until Monday. So just keep that in mind if you get there on a weekend. If you get there during the week, feel free to switch days 1 and 2 in this itinerary. After we checked out the observatory for a while, we wandered around the area. Chuo Park is right there. There was a lot of beautiful cherry blossoms. We grabbed lunch and then we headed over to Shinjuku. Now, if you see photos of Tokyo with like all the crazy lights and things happening, they're probably pictures of Shinjuku because the main area of Shinjuku is just like sensory overload. Just like streets and streets of neon lights and shops and restaurants, and Robot Restaurant is there. There's also some questionable 18 plus places there. But it's very cool and you can kind of just wander around there for a few hours. So after that, we headed over to Omoi Yokucho, which is unfortunately nicknamed Piss Alley, but it's basically an alley full of really small food stalls that seat about 6 to 10 people, and most of them serve yakitori, which is just grilled skewers of meat, and it's absolutely
delicious.
It's very picturesque with like lanterns, and it's a really, really cool spot just to hang out for a little while. So we grabbed dinner there, and then we walked back to Shinjuku, which is only about 5 minutes away. And again, it's a spot you've
got to be there at night
because the lights are just crazy and there's so much going on. You can definitely hang out there into the wee hours of the night. Day 3. Probably noticed that days 1 and 2 are a little bit crazy, so day 3 can be a bit of a recovery day for you because you're gonna be
on the train to Kyoto.
So the bullet train to Kyoto is a couple of hours. If you take it first thing in the morning from Tokyo, it'll probably put you in Kyoto around lunchtime. So we grabbed lunch at Kyoto Station. There's a ton of great restaurants there. Checked into our hostel, and then we just kind of hit up some Kyoto shopping streets. You'll notice in Kyoto there's a lot of these like covered shopping streets that just have like tons of stores and seem to go on forever. Teramachi Street is one of them. Shingyokuku. Honestly, if you get onto one street, you'll probably run into all of the others because they're all weirdly intertwined, but definitely kind of a more relaxing activity of just strolling around, grabbing some souvenirs, getting some snacks here and there. After that, we went to Pontecho Alley, which is kind of the equivalent of Piss Alley in Kyoto, except that the restaurants are bigger and the front of the restaurants is down an alley, but the back side of the restaurants opens out onto the river, and it's just
very romantic, very beautiful.
Definitely have to check it out if you're in Kyoto. Day 4. We started day 4 bright and early by waking up and getting to the Fushimi Inari Shrine. So this is a shrine that's got all of those like red gates all the way up the mountain. Again, the earlier you can get there, the better. There's quite a bit of people there. But I will say, if you're down for it, you can go all the way up the mountain, and the further up you get, the less people there are. Now, I think there's a little bit of a misconception about how difficult it is. There are quite a few stopping points on your way up. Little shops with snacks, restrooms, just places to sit for a second if you get tired. In total, it probably only took us about an hour to get from the bottom to the top. I've read a lot of things online that people said take them 2 to 3 hours, and I just think you'd have to be going really, really slow. But even if it does take you a long time, it's totally worth the walk. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's kind of in the middle of like
a jungle-looking area.
And once you get to the top, it's just a great feeling. There's a beautiful overlook of Kyoto and hardly anyone up there. So great chance to get photos and
videos.
After the Fushimi Inari Shrine, we went to Nishiki Market, which is a long street of a bunch of different food stalls, just kind of like street food in Kyoto. Great place for lunch if you want to just try a bunch of different things. After the market, we hit up the Kiyomizudera Shrine, which is the
giant shrine in Kyoto.
While we were there, it was actually unfortunately under construction, so we didn't really get to see much of it, but there's actually a bunch of different shrines there, so a lot to look at. And again, another kind of busy shopping street leading up to the shrines with plenty to look at and plenty of snacks to try. For dinner on day 4, we headed back over to Pontecho Alley and we hit up a gyoza shop that I'm going to recommend because it was
that good.
It's called Chow Chow. I will put the details in the description below. Day 5. Day 5 was our second day in Kyoto. We started the day off at the Arashiyama bamboo forest, which Arashiyama is kind of a whole different area of Kyoto. The bamboo forest was beautiful. We did get there first thing in the day. The earlier you get there, the better, the less people, blah, blah, blah. After that, we went to the Tenryuji Temple and Garden, which is right next to the bamboo forest. Actually, we kind of stumbled upon it while we were there. You do have to pay to get in, but I totally recommend it. I think it was like 500 yen, but it was a breathtakingly beautiful garden. You can actually go in the temple. We kind of relaxed there for a while because it was just so beautiful. It's an old Zen temple, so definitely very peaceful. We grabbed lunch after that, and then we headed over to Kinkakuji, which is the Golden Pavilion. Another thing that you kind of just have to see in Kyoto. And then finally, our last thing that we did in Kyoto was head over to Gion, which is the geisha district of Kyoto. Unfortunately, we did not see any geishas when we were there, but Gion is definitely very cute. There's like traditional tea houses there, lots of really cool restaurants and shops. It's just got a very quaint, picturesque vibe that is definitely worth checking out. Day 6. We started the day with a bullet train to Osaka. It's very close, like 30 minutes to an hour to get there. So the first thing we did was check into the hostel and go to Osaka Castle. Osaka Castle was just
breathtakingly beautiful.
It's in a very cool park area too, so you can grab a snack while you're there. And you can actually go inside. I do think it costs like 400 yen to get in, but there's an observatory at the top that gives you an overview of Osaka. The rest of the castle is pretty much just a museum, and unfortunately they don't allow you to take photos in there, but if you're interested at all in
the construction of Osaka Castle,
that's basically what the museum's about, just kind of the castle and the history of Osaka. So it's interesting, but I definitely think the lookout at the top was worth paying the entrance fee. After the castle, we headed over to Shinsekai, which is the old neighborhood in Osaka. It's very picturesque. Again, lots of cool shops and restaurants. We actually stayed at a retro arcade for quite a while, so it's got a very different vibe than downtown Osaka. If we had been staying in Osaka for more than one day, probably would have stayed there into the night. But as we were there for only one day, we headed over to Dotonbori for the evening, which is the busiest tourist area of Osaka. It has the Glico man there with the arms up and tons of shops and restaurants and things to look at. It's super bright. There were like live bands playing when we were there. And of course, it is the food capital of Japan
/ the world.
You probably already know, but if you're in Osaka, you've got to try takoyaki, which is the fried octopus balls, and okonomiyaki, which is a Japanese savory pancake. Definitely recommend going to an okonomiyaki restaurant for dinner. It is just so fun. They cook right in front of you, and it's just a great place to eat, drink, and hang out for a while. So after dinner, we just hung out in that area. We actually walked over to Amerikamura, which is very close, technically America Town in English. It's supposed to be kind of the equivalent to Harajuku in Tokyo in that it's a little hipster, but you'll see a lot of American brands and restaurants there.
Which is funny.
But it's a great spot for nightlife in Osaka, and you can hang out there for a while, which
we did.
Day 7. We had breakfast in Osaka, and then we went
back to Tokyo
via bullet train. Again, because it takes a couple hours to get there, we didn't get to Tokyo till like mid-afternoon. We checked into our hostel, and then we went over to Akihabara. Akihabara is like the manga, anime, gaming, electronics hub of Tokyo. It's again kind of a sensory overload place, but very fun, especially if you're into anime and gaming and all of that stuff. There's a lot of stores to go into that you kind of can't find anywhere else, at least not in America. So we hung out there for quite a while, grabbed dinner there, and it's just a good spot for nightlife as well. Day 8. For our 8th day in Tokyo, we went to Asakusa, which is just another kind of like neighborhood in Tokyo. Here is the Sensoji Temple, which you have to see. It's just one of those things you can't miss. Leading up to the temple is the Nakamise. Leading up to the temple is the Nakamise shopping street, which is just kind of full of little touristy booths and things to eat and whatever. It's touristy, but it's fun. And the Kaminariman gate is also there leading up to the temple, which is that giant gate with like the big red lantern. After lunch, we headed over to Ikebukuro, which has been dubbed as the Akihabara for girls. And definitely after being there, I understand, because there's like a lot of really weird fan fiction shops, but a lot of cool anime shops also, and manga and gaming, and it's a much bigger area than I was anticipating, There's a
giant
mall there called Sunshine City that we checked out. There's a really big Pokemon Center in there. So a lot of like shopping and a lot of people. So totes worth checking out if you have time. After Ikebukuro, we went to Ueno Park, which is another really big park in Tokyo. Ueno Zoo is also there if you're into zoos. And after we chilled in the park for a few hours, we went to Ameya Yokocho, a open air market in Ueno. It's very, very, very close to the park. It branches off into 2 streets just full of like food stalls, small shops, and we had some
amazing food there. So
you can definitely kind of spend the rest of your night in that area. Day 9. Sad, the last day, but I don't want to say we saved the best for last, but we definitely saved some
good stuff
for the 9th day. We spent our final day in Tokyo going to Odaiba, which is an island right off of Tokyo, and it has a totally different vibe than the rest of Tokyo. There's a really nice beach there, a lot of great parks, and what we actually did when we first got there is we went to the Team Lab Borderless Museum, which I cannot recommend enough. It was one of my favorite things we did the entire time we were in Tokyo. If you like art, if you like music, this place, like, it's so hard to put into words because it was just such a surreal experience. We were in the museum for like 3 hours because the way that it works is that there's no map or directions and it's really dark and it's all interactive. It's very much choose your own adventure of just walking around, finding different rooms, exploring and discovering things. One thing to note is that you do have to get your ticket in advance online. I think we only got it like a week in advance. So not super in advance, but they only sell a certain amount of tickets each day. So just make sure you're checking on that. And like many things in Tokyo, even after you buy your ticket in advance, you have to wait in line. So we did wait in line for quite a bit to get in. I would recommend either going in the off season or just getting there even before it opens to start lining up, because it wasn't too busy once you're inside, but waiting in line was a little annoying. But totally worth it. I would have waited twice as long, honestly. After the museum, we grabbed lunch and then we just spent the rest of the day chilling at Odaiba Beach. There is a giant Gundam statue at Diver City there, which is another big shopping area. So
I don't really care about Gundam, but
if you care, it's there. We saw it and we're like, oh, cool. Rainbow Bridge is also there. That's what connects Odaiba back to Tokyo. I will say it's only rainbow certain times of the year. So we sat there for a long time waiting for it to become rainbow, only to look it up and realize that it's not actually rainbow all times of the year, which is dumb. But it was still really pretty, and Odaiba Beach is very relaxing and very peaceful, so it's a great place to go if you just need a chill day, which we definitely needed at the end. So that concludes it, you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you now have some ideas about what you want to do on your first trip to Japan. If you're anything like me, this itinerary will only make you want to come back and do more. So let me know in the comments if you like this video, if you'd like to see more things like this, if you have any other ideas or want any other tips about Japan, let me know in the comments. And in the description of this video, I will link to a more detailed version of this itinerary along with addresses and restaurant recommendations for those of you guys who would like that. So just check out the links below, and until next time, see you guys later.